There's one activity in Russian that is fun, easy, and addictive to do that will make it easy for you to spend hours a week learning Russian on autopilot. And I've been doing this activity ever since I started learning Russian, and without it, I would not have been able to become fluent in Russian. Curious what I'm talking about? Well, in this video, you are going to learn what is this autopilot learn Russian activity, the 4 benefits that this activity will have for your Russian skills, how to apply it to your life so that you can effortlessly learn Russian, and the 3 stages or levels that you'll go through with this activity. Let's get started. Давайте начнем. So what is this autopilot activity that I'm talking about? Well, what I want you to do, because what was very effective for me was watching Russian series. Now, I'm going to explain 4 reasons how that helped my Russian become much better. The first one is that series are just very addictive and fun to watch. Now, with addictive, I mean like they're not addictive, but everyone has this experience where, let's say on a Sunday afternoon, you're like, oh, let me watch one episode of one of my series. And then suddenly, before you know it, it's Sunday night and you've watched the entire season. Now, before, I'd always feel like I was wasting my time if I would be watching like an English or a Dutch series like that. But after I switched to Russian series, I would be like, okay, well, great. I just spent 6 hours practicing Russian. And this is something that, because of the cliffhangers, it's just so easy to spend a lot of time on them. And this is great because it brings me to the second point. It will help you improve your listening skills. Now, this may seem obvious, and it is obvious, but there are lots of people who still struggle. Like, I remember in the beginning, I found it very difficult to understand where a Russian word started and where it ended. Like, if someone said, "Вы говорите по-русски," I would just be like, wait, is that one big word? But after you spend more time listening to native speakers, you understand it's always "Вы говорите по-русски." So it's actually 3 words. And the thing about is, some people, like if you watch 50 minutes of an episode of a series, I would see this as eavesdropping in on Russian conversations for 50 minutes. So the third thing that this will improve is it will improve your Russian vocabulary and grammatical skills. Now, it's not going to be like you watch a series and after watching this series, like, oh, today I learned that, I learned these amount of words, and I learned that these grammatical, and I learned more about the dative case, for example. No, it doesn't happen like that. What it rather does is it reinforces the grammar and words that you're learning outside of watching the series. And since it reinforces it, it exposes you to more words and the grammar in real life action. So it makes it easier for you to remember. Like one of my students, I remember he told me that he had just learned the word for never, никогда, and he watched a series. It was Лучше, чем люди, Better Than Us. It's on Netflix, actually. And there was one scene in which, I don't know, one of the characters was screaming like, никогда, never. And my student said that afterwards, like he's always like, if I hear the word никогда, this scene always flashes through my mind, and I just know that I'll never forget the word for никогда. So the 4th thing that it really helps with is something that I like to call like your Russian intuition. And this is more, I cannot really put like words on what it is, but it's more like your subconscious, you can call it. And this is great because, for example, lots of people, one example that this helps with is, for example, the stresses and intonation of Russian words. Lots of people struggle with the Russian stresses because they're so incredibly random. Like, who knows? Like, вода, and then я хочу воду. Why does it change? I don't know, but it changes. And a great thing is, if you spend a lot of time watching Russian series, is that you'll be exposed to so much common spoken Russian, is that you'll better understand. Like, if someone would ask me, where's the stress in the word дерево? They'd be like, дерево, дерево, дерево or дерево. I'm like, oh no, it's дерево. Why? Simply because, not because I see, not because I see the word in front of my eyes and be like, oh, there's like a little stress marks underneath the first yeah. No, simply because I've heard the word дерево so often that I have this intuition, like I can often now guess where a stress needs to be. And this is simply very valuable. And one thing where this actually is not good for is because you hear a lot of common words being used in Russian. So what this means is that you'll start to, like, good input means good output. So words that you'll hear often, you'll start to say more. So now currently I am watching mainly Russian comedians instead of series. And what I notice is lots of comedians, they swear a lot. So they use bad swear words. And I noticed that if I watch them a lot, these words starts creeping into my own vocabulary. And this is something I try to not do. It sounds a bit inauthentic if I, as a foreigner, start using Russian swear words. So then I need to hold myself back because I want to say some bad words. But then I need to be like, no, stop, don't do that. And this is something that the series also help with, but then in a good way, because you'll start, words simply pop up in your mind. They're like, whoa, I didn't even know I knew that word. Because you've been listening to people say this word often, then you just say it correctly. So the next question is, how do you apply watching series in a methodical way that you can learn Russian and get the most out of it? Well, the first thing that I'd like to tell you is that I've done some research on the statistics of the amount of time people spend, Netflix and TV, and it often gets to something like, I read numbers of about 3 hours a day on average for Netflix subscribers. And then it just baffles me, this number. And some people might say, oh, well, that's a waste of time. But I like to see it as an opportunity to learn Russian. Because imagine if it's only 33%, like only 1 hour a day, 33% of what the statistics say the average person spends watching series or TV a day. Just 1 hour a day. That's 7 hours a week. That is 350 hours a year. That's such staggering numbers that if you were to use that time, switch your native language consumption to Russian series, you'll notice such a massive improvement in your Russian. It's unimaginable. And now you might be like, well, there are some series that I like to watch, or I'm watching with friends and family. So it's difficult for me to switch all my media consumption from English to Russian. And I understand that. I do something similar because sometimes friends recommend series in English or in Dutch. And I'm like, yeah, I'd like to watch that one. So I don't do not all of my series time is spent watching Russian stuff, also some Dutch, some English, but I try to make the majority of what I watch in Russian so that I get the majority of benefits. And I like this strategy because it still allows you to watch stuff that you get the benefits, like you get the good native series of your native language or the English. Because Russian series tend to be a little bit, on average, worse than the English series because there's much less money going on around it. And you still get the benefit of of spending lots of time watching Russian series and being exposed to the Russian language. Now, a common question I get when I recommend someone to watch series is that they don't know how to watch them, like with subtitles, without subtitles, or kind of like how to do it. And that's why there are basically 3 levels of watching series. And most beginners will start at level 1. Well, all beginners will start at level 1. Level 1 is watching series in Russian, so with Russian sound and English subtitles. Now, some people might say that this is not effective for learning because you're still reading the English subtitles, but I'd say that it's still effective. I did this a lot, and what I found is that the main thing about this level 1 stage is giving your brain and your ears the opportunity and the time to listen to native Russian speech, while at the same time keeping it fun for you to actually watch it. Because if you start, like some people say, no, you have to start with Russian sound and Russian subtitles. Okay, well, try it. You're going to be bored out of your mind, or bored. It's just going to be difficult. You're going to be sitting there like, okay, I do not understand anything. And it's going to be very difficult to get those, even a couple hours a week if you don't understand anything. The power of the watching series is that you can spend a lot of time on it, all the while giving your brain and ears the opportunity to listen to correctly spoken Russian. So, in the beginning, there's really no shame in just watching with Russian sound and English subtitles. Once you've practiced, also outside of it, then you'll find that you can go to level 2. And level 2 is when you can watch with Russian sound and Russian subtitles. The great thing about this is, indeed, you're more immersed in the Russian language. So you will be learning more per hour spent watching Russian series. The downside is that it's more difficult and you need a basic level of Russian before you can do that. Not everyone, like beginners, cannot do this. How I recommend you apply this is that, for example, you've been watching Russian series for a while and you're like, I'd like to see if I can, go to level 2 and watch it with Russian subtitles. What you then can do is take a series that you've already been watching, so you're used to the accents of the characters, and then you switch like the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of this series. You put the English subtitles away and you put the Russian subtitles there. This will give you a challenge and a test if you can understand it. And then you just do it for however long it feels comfortable for you, maybe a little bit longer to push yourself a bit. And then you just switch back to English subtitles. Or you start from the beginning with English subtitles so that you can still follow the plot. Because it's important that you know the plot, you understand the plot, because otherwise you're not gonna be doing this for the time required. By the way, if you currently can only watch Russian series with English subtitles, then my course Conversations Unlocked can help you bridge the gap between watching with English subtitles and Russian subtitles. And then level 3 is that you can watch just with Russian sound, so no subtitles at all. I'm currently at level 3 because, like I said, I'm watching a lot of comedians now, which is kind of like my equivalent for watching Russian series. And often there are no subtitles, and I've just found that. But if I'm watching a series and there are Russian subtitles available, I tend to still prefer to go back to level 2 and watch them with Russian sound and Russian subtitles, simply because this gives a little bit extra of understanding, and it also helps to stay more focused. So what is the next step? Well, I recommend that tonight or tomorrow night, whenever you're getting ready to watch a regular series in your native language or in English, you just first take a step back and go look on YouTube or maybe online and look for a nice series in a genre you enjoy, and then go watch that. Just put on English subtitles, it's completely fine, and just enjoy the process. You'll find that because you're watching with English subtitles, you'll still understand the plot, but you'll be also improving your own Russian on autopilot, and it's really a great activity for that. Спасибо вам большое за просмотр и желаю вам хорошего дня. Пока!